So as you can see in here, it's very hard to get a coilover bypass in.
I mean, it's really hard to fit two big things in that really small space.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
What's up, Brite Nation?
What's up, Brite Nation?
Okay, so when we last left you off on the Stepchild 3.0 build, which is now the Stepchild 3.25, 3.5, 3.75, 3.8, I don't know what iteration of ideas we're on at this point. The Stepchild 3.0 build was at a standstill because somebody's, and believe me, it is bodies.
It is. We go back and forth. Look.
Not make up their mind on what direction to go.
Right. We read all the comments, and a few of you are like, well, look what you've done with 10-inch shocks up front. And,
you don't need anything else.
12s in the rear.
Just settle for this.
Yeah, and then a lot of you are like, I mean, it's the Stepchild. Go big or go home.
A lot of you got it probably as accurately as possible, because this is what Chris has been saying too, because every time Kevin's like, well, we could just get it back on the ground and wheel it, he'll be like, you're not going to be happy with it.
I wish we would have done that. And I'm like, well, you know what?
Chris doesn't like just like bolting stuff on. I think this is the part that Chris really likes. He doesn't like doing the oil changes on the F450 and like doing just basic maintenance stuff. He wants to cut shit apart. And so now, guess what? Now, guess what? He gets his wish. He gets to cut everything off, and he gets to cut into the body, and he gets to just start molesting the hell out of the Stepchild.
Oh my God.
Well, he's cutting big holes in it.
It's a whole different level of child abuse.
Whoa.
Most of you probably said it right, which is ultimately probably what we ended up, or we're going to do, and what we are doing, which is go big or go home. And as most of you know, we're never home anyways, so we might as well go as big as humanly possible. And that is now the plan. That is now our direction. We have a direction. The plan will not change again.
Well,
not as long as Chris can. Yeah, once Chris starts cutting,
go bigger than
we'll show you. This is why they can't change. So if you remember, the main problem was the packaging. I wanted to go coilover bypass up front, which we were almost getting to work. But I also wanted to go coilover bypass in the rear, which we were not being able to get to work. So I didn't want what I was considering an imbalanced vehicle, like this crazy front suspension, but then just a coil spring and bypass in the rear.
A lot of work for still not what we wanted.
And for most people, 99.9% of people, fine. But I'm going OCD on this one, and I have ADD. And that's really bad when you mix those two.
So Phil Accardi at Liberty Mountain Fab, aka Shock Jesus, you've probably seen him on our channel multiple times.
Yeah.
He's the one that gave us the solution. We didn't know that this solution was even an option when we started the entire Stepchild build, which is why it is just now happening.
Yeah, he told me about it. So I was telling him about the packaging issue, and I was like, how do I get a coilover bypass in the rear? So in the front, you want to lean them back, and in the rear, you want to lean them forward. And if you kind of look up here in a second, there's no way to get that in there. And he's just like, well, if you want to cut some stuff up, you can do this. And I'm just like, wait. What are those? All right, so you're going to have to wait to find out what the solution is because it's not here yet, and I want to have them physically in hand to show you if and when they show up. I hope they do. But what we do want to show you is kind of what we have to go through. So as you can see in here, it's very hard to get a coilover bypass in.
I mean, it's really hard to fit two big things in that really small space.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
But this one really big thing we're going to put in the small space.
That is also what she said.
Yeah, it's going to take some finagling, and we're going to have to, by we, I mean this guy. Do you want to show him what you have to do in here? Do you want to show him on that side?
Here, it's probably easier to get over here.
Yeah. If you'll see right here, one side's stuffed, one side is drooped. This is about the amount of the amount of droop articulation we're going to get in the rear.
We will ultimately end up having.
As you can see, the slider, which is well below the frame, is above the frickin' tire.
That is a full 40 dropped significantly lower.
And it's not aired down and crunched on the ground. It's literally, so this is about what we're expecting. How are we going to do that, Chris? How are you going to do that, Chris?
What I'm going to do is a little bit of trimming, a little bit of hacking, a little bit of gluing, bubble gum, some duct tape, and we'll get her back on the ground. As you can see from here, this is about, what did we say this was? A 12 or a 14?
That was a 12-inch.
This is a 12 or a 14-inch coil or bypass right here, which means we would have had to have found somewhere else to put a bypass. Essentially what we're going to do, cut this frame right here. We're going to cut the frame right here. We're going to cut the frame right here. We're going to cut the body right here. We're going to get rid of this guy and pull that right out. We'll put that back here. We're basically just going to run one gigundous thing.
He's gonna put one big ass tower all the way up in here and all the way into the body.
Way up here. So the top of the eyelet will be way up here.
Your pointer was way less cool than Chris's pointer.
Whatever. So he is gonna cut. So the reason why we can't go back is because he's cutting the frame out. He's cutting the coil bucket out. He's cutting all this out and then putting a tower in place of where this whole piece of frame is.
Yeah.
So once he cuts that,
there's no going back.
We hope that this part shows up, because if not,
I thought you were gonna clown on me for a second. I was like,
Oh.
you hope it's gonna work?
Oh no.
No.
Well, I hope you get it done in time for when the part shows up.
Oh, so we will be at the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
And the Bronco Stampede.
And the Bronco Stampede
before.
the week before. So keep an eye out for us, because the three of us physically will definitely be there 100%. The question is whether or not the stepchild will be there with us.
It will be. You just have to let him do his work.
That's the plan. If she's not, though, don't hate us.
Please don't hate me.
It's gonna be all his fault.
It'll be all Chris's fault. But again, the parts aren't here, but Chris is going to really try to get this done by the Jeep Invasion. But it's a lot of work, and you'll see. However, if you want to figure out where we three will absolutely be at, keep an eye on our Instagram, Lite Brite Nation, or our Facebook, also Lite Brite Nation, to figure out where we'll be doing meet and greets, signings, stuff like that during the Jeep Invasion, and potentially the Bronco Stampede as well. So just,
Now, because we're going very large, there's no towers on the market to do what I want to do. So we are going to go up. So I am going to do some modifications up here because I need to make slightly larger, bigger, longer, wider, fatter towers. I'm going to get the drawing and get these things cut out.
Alrighty, so here we have the rear torn down. We've got the speaker removed. We've got the ARB compressor and all the trim panels removed. Everything's cleaned up. So here's the deal. We're gonna have to cut all this here. The tower, the frame runs about here. So we're gonna have to cut the frame out, cut into the bottom here. So all this sheet metal is gonna be cut out. And then the new tower is gonna come up to right about here and down, Frenched into the frame. And then Chris is gonna have to build a box around this. So we'll be losing this interior room probably from about here over into here, because this will be its own like new box on each side. But what will happen is we will have this big badass tower Frenched in the frame right there. We want to put this mounting point on top of the axle, so for the rear, or as far forward as you can go. So for the rear, the further forward you can go, the more you can lean it, the more mechanical advantage you have. Think of like a lever, like a pry bar. The further forward you are and the more angled you are, the more leverage you have, which means the more spring rate you can run and the more you can do with the valving to tune it to make it spectacular. The more it's back here leaning back like this, the less leverage you have, and you have to rely more on like lighter spring rates and a lot crazier valving. So you have more mechanical advantage going this way. So that's why I'm saying we want to do it right, and doing that right means going to the top of the axle or in front of the axle for the bottom mounting point and lean forward, right to the top of the axle or just in front of the axle. The opposite is true up front. You don't want it leaning forward, you want it leaning back, which is how this already is. He's probably going to take it back a little bit further and give it a little bit more rake, and that is again the way this compresses. It's a mechanical advantage, and as the suspension cycles. So the front is going to kind of be the same, just a single big tower, not like these doubles, and it's going to move back just a little bit, end up here and come down. So that is what's going on. Chris luckily knows how to do AutoCAD stuff, and he's got to take the measurements, and hopefully we're going to build a tower in AutoCAD. So when we say go big or go home, that's what we mean. We're going like basically race Jeep stuff. What we're using is basically made for Ultra 4 cars. You can use it on a Jeep, and they have a bunch of other stuff you can use that's way less intrusive. And we could go with a 12 and probably not have to go this crazy. There's a lot of things we could do, but we're going 14s. At that point, it's like, why don't we go another 2 inches and go to 16s? And that's probably because we run out of driveline. That's probably a whole nother. So I don't know how he's going to exactly get these. I guess he gets measurements and angles. He's using his ichrometers.
All right, so last night I got everything drawn up and on the computer, and I'm glad I did, because today it's absolutely tarantula downpouring, and we didn't have power for a while. We didn't have city power for a while. We are on generators, so I've had lights and everything, but computer stuff I stay off of when we don't have power, because the last thing I need to do is fry my $1 million machine. All right, I got the driveline measurements all figured out. It actually only plunges about a ½ inch in the rear and like a 1/4 inch in the front. within 14 inches of travel. I think that's amazing. Now we're gonna move back onto the front, as long as I'm waiting for the rear towers to get here. If you remember, this track bar bracket had to go here, and I could move it over just a little bit because we were gonna hit a bypass. Well, now we don't have a bypass there. So I'm gonna work on making this as long as possible. I have to get the sway bar in here. Make sure I can get a sway bar link in there somewhere. I also need to get the new track bar in here. So we're gonna go ahead and get all this out. I do have another ram, well, because the new axle requires a bigger ram. So all this is gonna come out. I'm gonna redo all the plumbing and stuff. So right now we're just gonna get this thing torn apart so we can start over again for like the 3rd time. One of the things I knew was going to be a problem is getting in here and getting to the 2 power assist lines becomes quite problematic. So it's a good thing we're cutting this back out. Now's as good a time as any. This tower cut back out of here. It just tacked in a little bit. So I'll get this tower out of here so I can get those 2 hoses out of there. Got one out.
Now that Chris has that tower out, he still has to get the other side out, but we've got a lot of cool stuff on the table that we need to go over because we're gonna get the steering together, and we've been waiting on all these parts, but there's a sort of a mix match of parts here, and we'll have to explain why and what we're doing and why we went with what we're going with. Because it should just be all like rock crawler stuff, but we had to mix in steer smart stuff. So it's easier to show you on here real quick on Northridge's site. So the rock crawler Pro X tie rod and drag link, that's what we would be running. But because we're running a Dynatrac 60, yeah, we'll have to show you the way they do these 2 pickup points and how big rock crawler's ends are. Rock crawler's stuff doesn't fit together like that just because of how Dynatrac does this for all their steering. It's not a bad thing, it's good, but it means that we have to piece things together properly. So if you have a Dynatrac 60 front, the rock crawler, look how big those freaking end links are. So you can't get them in there. Yeah, you just can't. It's because these things are massive. So we have to go with the rock crawler tie rod, and then we went with a Steer Smarts drag link because this end isn't as big as this end. So these will work together. And then a rock crawler track bar. All right, thank you, Chris. I did need that help for a second. Then of course, and there's a lot. There's a PSC ram and a 4x4 garage peekaboo clamp, and we'll show you what's cool about that. Now real quick on this, if you go to Northridge and you order, don't forget, put in the code Stepchild for a discount up to 20% off anything on here. What's really cool is that these tie rods and drag links, the ends are rebuildable or easily replaceable. So this end alone, this is just $75 for this huge beefy thing. Now it's greasable. This is one of the reasons we like it. So it's greasable here. And then if you see these set screws, as these wear in over time, you can tighten these set screws in a little bit tighter to get the play out of here. So this is what's really cool about the new tie rod and drag link from Rock Crawler, the Pro X kit. This has been tested on their race cars at King of the Hammers and 4400 races for a couple years now. Now, if you remember, we tried doing the aluminum tie rod thing from another company. I'm not going to even mention who the company is, but we tried doing the aluminum tie rod thing before on the Stepchild, and it broke the very first obstacle on the very first trail.
Oh! That was a tie rod. That was a tie rod.
Tie rod?
Shattered it.
What?
Okay, you shattered the tie rod.
You were not supposed to do stupid today.
This is a brand new tie rod. It's brand new stuff.
So brand new steering. Tie rod apparently was not up for the challenge.
The aluminum has some give, which is good. The ends have way too big of an offset, and there's way too much thread here. So you have all this thread sticking out, and the offset is way too big. So as the tie rod deflected, it was just snapping these. Now people are snapping these things, not these, the other kit. They were snapping them left and right. People have literally like boxes of them at these events to hand out because people are stranded on the trail using this 2.5 ton tie rod kit. So we went with Rock Crawler this time, which has proper geometry here, has a proper forged end that's massive and not some 10-inch long frickin' shank with a crazy offset. That offset's what's gonna, as it bends, would be the issue. So Rock Crawler did their homework and they've tested it. So this is a big deal. I'm going over this for quite a few minutes because that left us stranded. The last aluminum 2.5 ton tie rod and drag link setup we went with frickin' left us stranded on a trail in the middle of the mountains in the desert. Now we're hoping, and I do think there's enough room, the longer you can make this track bar, the less axle swing and walk, like less walk we're gonna have, because we don't have a triangulated 4-link front like we have the triangulated 4-link in the rear. So that's it. That's the steering setup. Quick overview again. Rock Crawler tie rod, Steer Smarts drag link, Rock Crawler track bar. This should have trouble free and you'll be able to get it in. Now if you have a stock Rubicon axles or Sahara, whatever, you can run all Rock Crawler if you'd like, because that will fit. We're going to a bigger, you already put the other PSC ram away. So because of the new wider axles, we went from a 6.75 to an 8-inch, right?
That is correct. Because we have the XD, we get 50 degrees of steering angle, so we have so much more swing now. We needed a longer ram. Another cool product that we picked up
This is super cool.
This is Kevin's favorite.
Where's one of the crappy ones that you have over here?
Please hold.
So this is super cool. The 4x4 garage, Chris Webb, you gotta check these guys out. I hate the single shear bolt-in clamps that go on tie rods. Can't freaking stand them.
You mean one of these?
Yes. What happens is you work back and forth, and a lot of times this bolt will start to come loose and either shear off or it comes loose. Those guys get hit on rocks and all.
Yeah, and then you can't get a socket in there, and you can't get them tight anymore, and
they get
just
all mucked up. And there's different variations. There's ones with 4 bolts, which is even more terrible.
Sometimes I'll take this out, and I'll even double shear that, which is a little bit better, because now you're double sheared. You don't have to worry about walking the bolt off.
You want it double sheared, but put that on there real quick for the double shear. Okay, now look how high
well,
you could cut them down. You could cut them down, but you still have the head of this, so you can only go so far down.
You only go that far. And then you have these ones that have the center pin. These are a little bit small. This is for a smaller one, so yes, size difference is different. But you can get these a little bit larger, and you still knock on these guys. It has a center lock, so you can really dig into the aluminum.
But it's smooth.
But it's still smooth.
This is smooth. This can, if these come loose at all or you knock those bolts, it'll slide on your tie rod.
And same problem.
You can only go so
You can
low.
only go so low. Introducing
The baddest mother frickin' clamp on the market.
the Peekaboo clamp. So
Look at that.
this is knurled. This is a knurled surface, and even just it doesn't want to go right
It wants
now.
to lift off, right?
So that is probably the coolest feature of this clamp.
Well, and that it's cut
And-
out.
It's machined. Once you put this together, it's flush. You don't have to worry about knocking the bolt on another clamp if you get that close.
Because generally, it's a bolt that goes through. It's a nut and bolt, and so it's sticking out pretty far both ends.
Just like that, actually.
It is, yeah, literally just like that. So when you're in tight spaces or you're doing you have a lot of articulation, you have a lot of stuff, you have everything set up properly. So this needs to get all the way shoved up so it's at the biggest angle like this possible. And then the
And
other
you take
one,
this big bad boy. Make sure you anti-seize in here.
Yes.
Because this will corrode in time, and you will hate yourself for not spending the $10 on anti-seize to put anti-seize in there.
all right.
So you get it started, right? And then you gotta push it all the way up, and then you just walk that sucker. Will it make it? Yep, there it goes. There it is.
That's it.
Now you do have to change that out. You have to change this out for a flat guy, like this side. Otherwise, this will knock into it.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, see, we're already, because we would be at full right. Well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh, once
But
this
you
comes
can
down.
change that over.
Well, let's suck this down and see what happens. All right, so it's all on there.
So when I originally set this up, and I gave JP the measurements, we were going to move this bracket over. So we made the track bar longer. So right now I can't go to full stuff because it pushes the axle too far this way.
Because so this is a custom track bar because we knew we were going to go way out with the track bar.
Right,
bracket.
because we know if you go 72, you want to move that track bar out as far as you can to keep your bump steer and all the math right.
Yeah.
So
this is what it's going to kind of look like. We can't come down to full compression. We did earlier without the track bar, but the axle's walking back and forth. So
yeah, we couldn't steer it. We wanted to steer it, but we couldn't. It just kept.
yeah, so we put the.
If you give me another half hour, 45 minutes, I'll chop that thing off and move it over a couple inches.
We might have to do a little bump and grind and a little, I don't know, we'll see. It's
No,
close.
I think it'll be okay. And again, that's only at full
both sides, full compression.
The last half inch, it just kisses. Will you be there? I hope
it's an
not.
aluminum bar. It'll just.
I hope not, but if you are.
Good thing is, if I do, the steering wheel will be straight. It'll come straight down, kiss it, and come back. So if I'm turned,
it's just gonna.
Right. So that'll be fine.
All right, got all the towers chopped off, bump stop buckets all chopped off, frames all cleaned up on both sides. Ta-da! So what I have left is this track bar bracket. Now, if you remember, I said I was going to move it over. I know this track bar all the way bottomed out is already an inch longer than the old one. So I'm going to go over probably 2 inches, which, as you can see, we got a lot of room. So we got a lot of real estate in here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Pull it over. But now that this track bar is thinner, I'm going to try to get it a little bit closer to this third link because, as you can see, I got a lot of room. And the more room I have there, the more room that will allow me to run the new ram above, because it'll lift this point up just a little bit and it'll give me a little bit more clearance to run a ram. I'm going to get that cut off, then I'm going to set it at full droop because that's when the axle is going to be the worst off. Run that track bar all the way up. It touches that third linkish area, then we'll tack it back on. Okay, so we got the track bar cut off back in here. That's the 2 inch mark. We're not quite going to make it because here's why. If the axle is centered up at ride height, and we have that long bar in there, and we tack it in right there, as it goes up, it swings a little bit farther, and we touch that bar into the frame just because of the geometry of the bar. So 1.5 inches off, which is where we are, about 1.5 inches off. The Heim has good, it's seated really well. It's about halfway. It's actually a really long Heim, so there's a good chunk in here. We're gonna go right here, and that's where we're gonna live. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mark this, and then I'm gonna go to full droop, and I'm gonna rotate it so this just kisses this guy, which means I can rotate this bracket up and I can get more clearance in here for the ram. If I just stuck it back on there, we had like a good 1/2 inch here, which means I lose a 1/2 inch in here for the ram. So I'd rather make it up here because we'll never touch that, and have the room in here for the ram. So that's what we're gonna do now, is go to droop, rotate this till that touches that.
So look at our buddy Brite here at American Adventure Lab. He's got these really cool machines that
Our toys.
the toys machines that are really going to help us out. Chris could build everything from scratch, but this is a lot more precise. So Chris went through, measured everything, put it all in a computer system in SolidWorks. There you go. Sent it over to him. Luckily, he's squeezing us in because he knows that we're in a time crunch.
Yeah, and of course you came at lunchtime, so it's good.
Well, that's exactly when you want to show up, of course.
Everybody's going, so now we can get some work.
This is what we're making it out of. So we're gonna load this up on the toy, start cutting and bending stuff, and then we'll have towers to do this crazy ass suspension that we're doing. That's a much fancier forklift than ours.
That's way fancier than ours.
He can't even steer our shit. Here's all the stuff. Yeah, crazy. All right, we're gonna see what this baby does. All right, so here are all the parts. These look like these are the 2 rear towers because they're massive. So we got to fit big old stuff, big old coilovers in here. And I don't know what the rest is, but the front towers are those over there. And yeah, so I don't think there's much to bend up. I think you just need to bend the rear towers. Is that it? Everything else is individual pieces? That's everything we need, at least I hope. This is crazy super duty. Let's get it back to Chris and let him get to work. He's got 10 days. He's got 10 days, which I think he can do it, but that's 10 days straight with like no time off. Oh, that'll make it easier. So Brite, thank you.
Yep.
Check out American Adventure Lab. They've got just an insane amount of stuff for your Jeep, for your Bronco, for your Ram, for your
Tacoma.
for your Tacoma, all of your
stuff.
off-road vehicle needs. They make a ton of cool shit. We're gonna get this back to Chris.
So after getting that track bar bracket in last night, I realized that I had to put a little notchy notch in the front because we wanted to offset this guy or double shear this right here. I needed to put a space. So I got that in there. And then I also realized that the hole in the heim in the ram is a 5/8 bolt hole. The bolt that goes through the track bar was a 9/16. I then spent an hour or so looking for a 9/16 to 5/8 or a 5/8 to 9/16 misalignments. I couldn't find anything. I ended up having to take the ones out of the track bar and drilling these out to 5/8 because I couldn't find either one. And while Kevin was down there this morning, he picked up all my parts off the laser. So here's the new towers. These are going to work out great. So I'm excited. I got to get these all tacked up, and then the rear ones I got to get bent up. Basically, I'm going to slot them. American Adventure Lab only has the ability to bend 16 inches in 1/4 inch thick steel with the dies that they have. So I kind of screwed that up because this is way longer than 16 inches. So I'm basically going to take the plasma and just slot this with the plasma, bolt it down to this table, and then bend the ends down or up. I don't know. I haven't figured that out. But that's how we're going to do it. That's how we used to do it. And for some reason, that's how I designed this. So this has got a big laser slot in it, so you can easily fold that up. I mean, I'm going to weld it anyway. And yeah, I could have just had them cut in pieces. So like these would all 4 been individual pieces, but I don't know. I didn't. I should have slotted this to tell you the truth, but I forgot that part before I sent the file. No problem. I'll solve it now. Here's all the tabs and the tops and the back brackets and the front brackets and the eyelets and the axle tabs and the upper tabs that'll actually go in this because they basically match this. So this will stand off like right here, so you can get a socket through this hole and the bolt through both holes. I'm gonna go ahead and get these all welded up or tacked up. And then we'll start getting them into the frame, seeing where we got to cut, exactly where we need to cut, and start pushing them into the Jeep. Alright, so I got these bad boys all welded up last night. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get these cleaned up. And then the last thing I'm going to do that I know I've started like 3 times now, get this track bar bracket put on. It is drilled out to 5/8. Kevin went down to Casey's and got these drilled out. So now we're going to get this ram mount all figured out and put in the front of this Jeep. Alright, so next but not last, I got that track bar back in there. That was notched out. I did throw a ram back in there. This is the old ram. And here comes Kevin. There's Kevin. The ram mount is in here. This is basically ride height, and as you can see, everybody is.
Did you go? So originally got a new PSC ram from Northridge, a 6 3/4, because that's what was on here. But we went from 68.5 to 70, or 68.5 to 72.5 axles, and people I talked to said we needed an 8-inch ram. So I thought we needed an 8-inch ram. So we sent the 6 3/4 PSC back to Northridge, and they sent us an 8-inch ram. And now that Chris did all this, it turns out we actually need a 6 3/4 ram. So Northridge is gonna send us another 6 3/4 ram, and we're gonna send the 8-inch ram back.
Using code Stepchild.
Yeah, make sure you use the code Stepchild at Northridge. Save yourself some money. But thank you, Northridge, for flip-flopping us back and forth 50 times. On a Dynatrack axle, it doesn't matter if it's a 68.5 or a 72.5. It's a 6 3/4 ram. I don't know why people were telling me 8-inch. Maybe they were just doing it to mess with me. I don't know. But now you have the info. Looks sick. Good job, Chris. Dang.
Yeah, it's pretty much full stuff. We're almost to the oil filter.
Chris accidentally went too far one time and crushed the oil filter right there.
Yeah, that was in the last video.
Whoops.
Oops. But nobody hits. Like there is paper between everybody. Even at full steer, this doesn't come close to anything. So
yeah.
We are.
That was what 4x4 garage?
Yes,
clamp.
4x4 garage is the clamp.
Yeah, that's the clamp that you want. Don't forget about that guy.
I just gotta finish double shearing the bracket and bolting it up, and then that part will be done. All right, got these just kissed off, so there's no boogers on them. They're nice and soft, so they'll paint up really nice. So now we're gonna try to get these front ones, or not try, but we're gonna get the front ones put in there. Not 100% sure how they fit yet, so let's go see. I designed this guy with that eyelet to sit right about where this tang is. I'm pretty sure I gotta bend it out of the way, but All right, well, it's in. I do need to take out about that much just for the radius of the frame. I did not cut the radius of the frame into this piece. It's just flat. So I just need to just radius that a little bit. Yeah, it's got to be just pushed in a little bit. The other motor mount tab, the bracket that comes up over the frame, is right there. So I'm gonna have to notch this to get that to sit in there. You can see that if I ever have to change the master cylinder, it won't go over to the top of this. So I am gonna have to figure out if I need to lower this a little bit, because I don't wanna have to pull the cab just to swap out that master cylinder in the future. If there ever is a chance, I would prefer to not have to lift the cab to take that sucker out of there. So we might be cutting just a little bit more off of this to get that master cylinder out of there in the future if we have to. Also, this is high. This is probably about an inch high. I wanted to see how high I can get it. The next thing I have to do is check the other side and see how it looks. And I did just pull a measurement off of the back side to the eyelet, or to the top, and it's about 11 inches. And on the other side, I have about a 10.5. So I'm gonna see what's inside of this guy right here, because it needs to go right here. And there's nothing in there right now. And I know this side is the battery. I don't know. I mean, I can get rid of some of this webbing probably to get it to actually sit up here as high as I can get it. Because the higher I can get it on the chassis side, the higher I can get the bracket on the axle. Right now, she's about a little under flush from the bottom of the axle, so we're going to try to rectify that. We're going to see if we can get these, how tall we can get these towers up there. So I should probably start with the other side first. So let's go like that. The little frame guy is right there. Let's get that cut out and see what happens. All right, and back in. Go that way, go that way. Fits good. We just need to open this guy up a little bit more and pull it back up a little bit farther. Getting there. Oh, got clearance this time. Ta-da. Trimmed. Let's put this up. Let's go this up. There we go. Plenty of room. Bracket. Oh, look how well that fits. All right, so I'm going to take this out. I'm going to trace this onto the other one, cut the other one, and then try to get the other one to fit. If it fits, then they just go in. If they don't, we'll have to lower them. Yep, I got it. It's actually not that bad. I had to take all the fuse box and stuff out just because I didn't want to cut anything, but it's actually flush with the top of the tray, but I did have to notch all that out. So we will get the fuse box, drop back in there, put all that back together, put the top cover on, and it should just be just this little corner right here will be sticking out. So, all right, well, it got late and dark in here last night, so I'm going to show you how we did this. So basically on the driver's side, I literally just had to notch out the ABS plate, not necessarily for the block. There's actually enough room, it stands off. It's just that that plate was so big that it was protruding. I have enough clearance over here for the master to come off. It's tacked in. We have a lot of space at the steering column. Nothing else is in the way over here. I do like the angles of the dangles. Mosey on over here to the passenger side. So this got a little tricky. I'll lower it down in a minute. But basically the auxiliary battery box was there. Because the auxiliary battery is not there, that actually goes all the way up to the bottom of the fuse box. From like here over is the battery tray. So we're just protruding into the battery. It's actually flush with the tray mount, and everything is back in there and everything is bolted up. I think it's going to be just fine. I'm basically going to build a plate and then put rubber for the battery to sit on, because as you know, we're running that anti-gravity battery right there, which weighs nothing, so it will fit right there. A lot of trimming of plastics and stuff, but for the most part, she's in there. So the front is 90% done. I do have to make lower brackets, but I have to wait for the shocks to get here so that we can bump it out and everybody's happy. I need to make bump stop mounts, which I will make once the shocks are in, so that, for obvious reasons. The rear is all I have left. I have the towers made. I don't want to cut this until I have the shocks physically in my hand. Because if I screw up cutting this frame and I get the towers welded in here and they're not right, and I got to cut it back out, we're pretty much SOL. So be patient. There's one more video coming out. I hope one more video. We'll get the shocks in it and we'll get it back down on the ground. But right now, I just got to wait. We just got to wait. This is the worst part. The worst part is waiting. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
What's up, Lite Nation?
What's going
up,
on,
Doc?
Lite Nation?
You said what's going on. Hi, guys.
What's up, Lite Nation?
What's up, Lite Nation?
Okay, so
still
when
fucked
we
that
left you,
Keep going. Keep going.
what's up, Lite Nation?
What's up, Lite Nation? It's fine. So I can't really tell you what exactly the salute this is.
So we will be at the Great Smoky
Mountain.
Mountain Supervision.
That thing.
All right.